I'm Beth Stansel, but at the time when I knew Gerald, I was Beth Altman. And Gerald?
I'm Gerald Scott. I don't know what else to say beyond that. Too many people already know about me, so I can't say a whole lot. But this is Gerald Scott. Spent 36 years with Junior Achievement. I remember Bob Van Zant did training for Junior Achievement for new staff, and they would do a part of their training in Atlanta. So I sat in on the training sometimes, and one day Bob said, "If you ever get up one day and don't want to go to work, it's time to change jobs." I thought about that, and I thought, well, no, we all have some days that we just don't want to go because we know we have to do something we don't really want to do. But I thought I'm going to change that to say, start having very many of those days, then maybe you need to change jobs. But I can honestly say that I loved almost every day I worked with Junior Achievement.
That's great.
Just a great organization. And after having been gone for so long, when I was still doing campaigns, capital campaigns all over the Southeast, everywhere I'd go, I'd talk about my experience with Junior Achievement. It was amazing how many people I ran into who were either former achievers or had been on the board or had been a JA advisor, had some connection to Junior Achievement. So it was all good. Yeah, all positive.
I can understand why it was positive because you're a great person, and I'm sure people respected that, and I'm sure that they reflected that. I know I did. Gerald, I was thinking maybe it would be good for you to talk about how you got to JA. When did you start? When were you first aware of what junior achievement is?
Well, interestingly enough, my senior year in high school was first year. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. My senior year in high school was the first year they had junior achievement in Nashville. So we had this guy that came out and talked to us in his assembly like we used to do with the
Yeah.
old nighttime program, and said, you can learn how to start your own business and learn all these things about business and so forth. And so I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I think I'll sign up for that. So I signed up for Junior Achievement. I was accepted. I think the first week of Junior Achievement, if I remember correctly, I was sick, and so for some reason I did not go the first week when they were assigning everybody to companies. So I went the second week, and they told me that we'll just go around, look in the different company rooms, and pick one you want to join. That's the one you can join. So I did. I looked around, and I hate to admit it, but I actually saw a couple of girls in there that I thought, oh, these cute girls. I'll go in there and join this company. Well, it turned out to be a blessing all the way around because I joined a company sponsored by Nashville Gas Company. We had three of the officers of the company as our advisors. And so, at any rate, that was my first connection with Junior Achievement. And my connection with the advisors goes all the way to the time I started working for Junior Achievement.
So when did you start working for JA?
Started working for JA in 1960 or 61. I think it was 61, I think. And
61.
I was still in college at the time, but they offered me a part-time job as program director. And where I'm going with the JA, the advisor connection, was nobody in my family had ever gone to college, and I wasn't planning to go to college. But my advisor, one of my advisors, was vice president of marketing for the company, and he offered me a summer job. He said, "What are you going to do when we get out of high school?" And I said, "I don't know." He said, "We've got some openings for part-time people in the summer." So I said, "Tell people," I'll say, "I'm sure people at the company wonder what was going on. Here's this little pipsqueak." And about every couple of weeks, he would call me into his office. And I think they think, why is this guy going to his office? This officer of the company. But he talked to me about what are you going to do for the future? So he convinced me that I need to go to college. And they offered me a part-time job while I was all the way through college in the summers. I could also call them up when we were on spring break or anything like that. I could go in and work during that period of time. And when I got the offer of the job, he was actually chairman of the board of Junior Achievement. And so they were looking for a part-time program director. And so they offered me the job while I was still in college. So I started then.
And this was in Nashville?
This was in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Worked there for 2.5 years, I guess. And then I got drafted into the Army. So I spent a couple of years in the Army and came back and went back to work in Nashville. course, I was full-time at that point, full-time before I went in the Army too, but so I spent a couple of more years working in Nashville, and then went to Middletown, Ohio, where which is kind of almost like the birthplace almost of junior achievement, because Charlie Hook was the first board chairman of junior achievement. Armco Steel Company was a major supporter. So I spent a couple of years there. Then went from there to Chattanooga. Was in Chattanooga for 5 years, and then to Atlanta. And all great experiences, great people along the way. Great people like you that I had the good fortune of being able, smart enough to hire. My first boss told me, said, hire people that are smarter than you are. And, you want people to surround yourself with people that have better ideas than you do, and not just somebody that's going to just agree with everything you say. I remember one time, actually, Beth, I remember you telling me something you wanted to do within the Atlanta city schools, or maybe it was south of Atlanta. I don't remember exactly what. And I sat there and told you why that would never work. We had tried that once before and it never worked. I thought about it overnight. I came in the next morning. I don't know if you even remember this or not. I came in, I said, Beth, I thought about what we were talking about yesterday, and I think you should go ahead and do it. You said, wait a minute, you told me not to do that. And I said, well, times are different. You're a different person. You might make it work. And whatever it was, I remember you did make it work. And so I tried to do that, to listen to the other staff people and get their ideas on things. Just because it's my idea doesn't mean it's the right idea or the best idea. We need input from other people. We need input from younger people. I guess I got some of that from my early experiences. In my early days with junior achievement, at the National Staff Conference, they set us in alphabetical order. So I sat between two guys. One I can remember, Bud Swink, was the executive director of St. Louis. I cannot remember this morning for the name of life of me, the name of the person who was in Houston, Texas. But I sat between those two guys. Those are two of the stalwarts in junior achievement back in the 60s. And I sat between those two guys. And they became kind of my mentors. They took me in. They didn't look at me like, you're a young guy, you don't know what you're doing. They asked me my ideas, my thoughts and all. And so I tried to parallel that as I went along, tried to work with the other young people as I went along coming into the organization, that just because they were new to junior achievement, a new executive director, I still remember the first time I ever met Sally at a regional conference that we hosted in Atlanta. But so that's some of my experience with junior achievement early on.
Well, so I had a few questions that I jotted down to ask you. So basically, if I understand correctly, you were a program manager for part-time, then full-time, then you went in the war, came back, or got drafted, come back. Then were you an executive director after that?
Executive director in Middletown, Ohio.
Okay.
A small operation there. And it had a secretary. It was me and a secretary. She was part-time when I went there. And I'll share an experience there too, that after I got there, the board decided they weren't sure, we really needed a full-time person or not. So they said, they had a retired board member. They said, why don't you go spend a couple of days in the office with Gerald, just see exactly what he does all day. I was terrified. I thought he's going to come here and say, this guy doesn't do anything. We have in our own mind, we think we're doing a lot, but sometimes we wonder, does anybody else really know what we're doing? Because I had people ask me, what do you do during the summer months when school's out, when you don't have junior achievement? You have plenty to do, as we all know, during the summer. But at any rate, he came in and spent 2 days with me. He went to the next board meeting. He said, I don't know how he does everything he does. He said, I don't know how you do that with one person. So that was a validation that what I was really doing was a lot of work and a lot of good stuff going on, and that we were trying to do in this small town of Middletown, Ohio, a little town of about 55,000 people.
Wow.
But, so I was there a couple of years, had no intentions of going to Chattanooga. I got a call and they wanted me to interview for the job. And I said, well, I'm not interested in going to Chattanooga. They said, well, you don't have to go. We just need more people to interview. So we want you to go, just go to the interview. You don't have to take the job or anything. Well, I went on the interview And lo and behold, they offered me the job. And so after going there, I decided, okay, that's the job I need to take then, I guess. So I did. And that was a good experience too. Different situation because then I had a bigger operation and just went from there. Just had part-time people working for me there too, as helping out as center manager and things like that. Different person every night of the week, but you're still there all the time anyway, because you still have to be there to oversee exactly what's going on. But it does give you some people that can do some other things for you, and you're kind of training them along the way too. So uh, that's uh, that's my early years of junior achievement, and it was all good, and went on from there.
When did you come to Atlanta?
I came to Atlanta in November of 1973.
Wow.
So came to Atlanta, totally new experience because all of a sudden I had multiple
Yeah.
locations, multiple locations where we had operations. And I still felt like initially I thought I need to be in these centers every night. So I was in a different center every night and thinking again that you know how everything should be done. I still remember telling these stories on myself that I went out to our Buckhead Center once, which was on
Yeah.
the north side, and I went out there and they had the bulletin board up. I thought, well, they've got all the stuff in the wrong places on the bulletin board. So I rearranged the bulletin board.
Oh
It was the
no.
way it was way and these were full-time staff people. Well, some of them were. Person who ran the Buckhead operation was a full-time staff person. But I'm just kind of saying, well, you don't know how to set up a bulletin board. Well, he set it up the way he thought it should be. So I realized that was not a smart move on my part. And I had Marvin Butts, who was our regional vice president, to tell me, you don't have to be in a center every night. That's why you hire other people. You need to visit occasionally, but you need to be focusing on the daytime work that needs to be done. You don't need to be working 15 hours a day now just because you have multiple locations. You don't have to be in the center every night like I did in Chattanooga, where I was the only full-time staff person other than the secretary. So I learned from that that you have to give put some confidence in other people, realize that other people can do the job. You don't have to do everything if you've got the right people. Uh, so that was a good learning experience for me, having multiple staff, multiple locations of operations, finding out how different things worked in different communities. So that was a good learning experience for me.
And of course, we opened a brand new building.
Well, the new building, that was one of my pride and joys at the time. Of course, they no longer need that, so they sold it off, but which I understand exactly. But at the time, we needed a new location. We had a rented location in Buckhead, and it was a good location from the standpoint of the community it was located in, but it didn't reach out far enough to the north side. So we had Western Electric donated some property to us, or AT&T donated some property to us, and we built the new building there. You were with us at the time. One of the biggest accomplishments, I guess, was that we had planned to try to raise enough money to maybe cover the cost of getting the building started. We would finance it over several years, and we were getting 5-year pledges. Then I had a major foundation to come in and say that we were working with, and they did everything anonymously. But they said, if you can raise enough money to pay off this building, we'll give you this much money to help pay off the building if you raise the rest of the money. So went back to some of the companies that had made 5-year pledges and said, if you can up your pledge to go ahead and pay it all now, we can get the building paid off. So the big thing that I could say is that before the doors were ever unlocked on that building, it was fully paid for.
Yeah.
Then I had a chance meeting with somebody from Herman Miller Company,
Yeah.
who were getting ready. They were based in Midland, Michigan. They were built office furniture,
Yeah.
made office furniture. They were getting ready to open their first major location outside of Midland, Michigan, in Roswell, Georgia, which was just north of Atlanta. And I had a chance meeting with the guy, and we talked about what do you do and so forth. So I told him I was the junior achievement. He told me what a great program it was, how big they were in Midland, Michigan, if that's the location, somewhere a small town in Michigan. He he said, we might be able to donate the furniture for your new building. So we started there, and lo and behold, we moved into the new building with old furniture, as you will recall. We loaded up trucks and moved furniture over there. Staff did, and everybody else helped on moving furniture into the building. But then one day, this 18-wheeler shows up at the office and shows they've got a load of furniture for us to furnish the entire building with all new furniture, which was a new thing for us. I remember Esther Myrick, who was a longtime secretary there. She had already been there probably when I came there. She'd been there since 58, I think. Right out of high school, she started to work with Junior Achievement. She said, I never thought I would have a new desk, because what we usually got with Junior Achievement was one of our board members would be putting in new furniture in their office. They'd give us their old furniture. So we always had hand-me-down furniture until Herman Miller showed up and furnished the office with completely new furniture throughout the building, even for the training room that we had, furnished enough chairs and tables for our training room. So that was a great asset, I think, and a great time for us in Junior Achievement in Atlanta.
Yes.
So,
Well,
yeah,
I remember that new furniture. I got to sit at one of those desks.
yes, absolutely.
It was great.
We didn't let you sit too long, though. We had you out working.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we were working.
I also had somebody tell me with Junior Achievement said, if you spend over 50% of the time you're in your office, you aren't doing your job. You need to be out doing things with the schools, with the companies you're working with, out recruiting more advisors, more volunteers, and so forth. So try to use that as a motto too, that don't sit in your office and think you can do everything from the office. You have to get out in the community and
That's
be
right.
out with people. So it was all good experiences, though, great experiences, great people to work with. You, Gary, and so many others that we worked with over the years.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the time very, very well. So, okay, so I know I took you through the building of the new building. A lot more happened after my time there. So one thing that in particular is that the program really evolved. In fact, I was surprised. I went last night on the website for JA USA, and I'm looking at all their products, and I'm going, wow, it just goes on and on and on and on. And of
Oh,
course,
yeah,
and when I was there, we started Project Business. That
right.
that was the big expansion. So it's interesting how the program evolved. How did you evolve with that?
Well, it was interesting because, again, we had always said, we can only do things one way. We had a box and we said it has to fit in this box or we don't do it at Junior Achievement. Had superintendent of schools, Atlanta City Schools, that said to me one day, he said, you'd get a whole lot better participation in Junior Achievement if you did it in the schools as opposed to doing it in a central location at night. Lon Crim was the superintendent of schools at that time, and I said, Lon, that would never work. Of course, later on, I had to go back to him and say, Lon, you're right. You were ahead of the game. We found out a way to make it work. So again, fortunately, Project Business was the first one to come along, and it was in a middle school program. We put it in the schools. We had volunteers going into the schools, the same concept. They went into schools one day a week to assist the teacher. And as I said, taking textbook theory and putting it into real practical application in the classroom. And you had the volunteers going in, so they had a lot of credibility with most of the schools, most of the teachers. And I'd say 99% of the teachers we worked with were great. We had a few, like everything else you find, that we gave them all computers. And one of the found out later, one of the teachers that was doing our program never took the computer out of the closet. Students didn't even know they had a computer in the building. And but 99% of them were great. They loved what they were doing. They loved this. It took more work on their part, but because they were dedicated to the kids just as much as we were, they used it. And I'll tell you this, I went and did a couple of project business classes myself a couple of times. And I said, I don't know how teachers do everything they do during the day, just being in there 1 hour a day. Then later we started the elementary school program. What was it called? Business
This is after me.
basics or something. I forgot what it was called, but again, I remember asking somebody at a national meeting, Hall of Fame meeting or something, where we had the national educators at the meeting. I said, don't you think that first and second grade is too early? He said, no, it's never too early. And this is when I was told, and I saw somebody say this just recently. talking about, he said, or we can identify by the third grade potential dropouts because they're already behind in learning how to read and write. So that was the next program that we started. Then we, of course, went from there to applied economics, which essentially was the first thing that replaced the nighttime program. So we no longer need those facilities. We put everything into the classroom, and we found out again that there are just so many better ways to do things. And as I say, took things into the classroom, something we thought we would never do in junior achievement. Many times we had people asking us to do that other than line cram around the country. We said, no, we don't do that. We do it at nighttime. Get them out of the school, get them in different environments. No, it worked in the classroom. And now, again, as you say, it has evolved so much more than I could ever imagine. I remember when after I was gone from junior achievement, I went and met with Jack. Jack Harris was heading up junior achievement of Georgia at the time. And I went and met with Jack one day. I said, Jack, I am so amazed at the things you're doing because you're doing things we could have never dreamed of doing when he started JA3DE, going in and taking over an entire school with junior achievement. I said, we could never even imagine doing anything like that. And I said, it's so great that y'all are so much far advanced than we are. But again, it all started from that one little program, making a product, going out and selling a product, which I did as an achiever. I still remember our first product. We made footstools, wooden footstools. And I went to NAJAC, and that was probably the best thing I did as far as my real connection with junior achievement. So I stayed connected with junior achievement after going to NAJAC. And we actually started way back when a graduate achievement program where we would go up and meet at Miami University, Miami of Ohio, in Oxford, Ohio. We'd go up there and meet for about a 4-day conference, just probably about 50 to 100 graduate achievers, as we called ourselves at the time. We were already out of junior achievement. We were still wanting to be connected to junior achievement and volunteer in the local area and so forth. So that kind of experience gave me the start to work with junior achievement. And Beth, were you an achiever too?
Oh, I was.
I thought
Yes.
I remembered you were. I thought I remembered you were an achiever.
Yes, I was.
So, obviously you didn't have to be an achiever, but if you were an achiever and you came to work for junior achievement, you already had a good feel for everything. You had already learned from your advisors the things that you could get out of it. One of the best things to me over the years has been, this happened probably, at least 15 years ago, I guess. So how this person recognized me, I have no idea. I was in Athens for a Georgia football game. We were tailgating. We were going somewhere else. I was walking down the sidewalk and I heard this guy holler, "Hey, Mr. Scott, Mr. Scott." Looked over and I thought, who is this guy? So I went over, he introduced himself. It was one of our former achievers who was an achiever back when you were involved, I guess, back in the 80s, Sean Callahan. I don't know if you remember the name or not. One of our superstar achievers. And his brother, I've forgotten his brother's first name, but Sean had told me about how he had ended up starting his own business. He said, I would never even done that if I hadn't been in junior achievement.
That's
So many
nice.
people like Sean that I thought about, and I used to think these people would have been a success if they'd never heard of junior achievement. But when you see those kind of situations 10 years, 15 years later, they still remember all their experiences. They want to tell you about them. They want to tell you how they got into business. I had so many others like that I ran into over the years. And as I say, then as I was doing, after I left junior achievement, I was doing what I've been doing for the last 23 years. Everywhere I went, whether it was Valdosta, Georgia, Carrollton, Georgia, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, I would always run into people who were former achievers and still loved the experiences, or they were former advisors or former board members. We would ever share our good experiences with junior achievement. So junior achievement word was continued to spread, even though people were no longer active involved in junior achievement, but they still loved the experience and all they had gotten out of it. And again, it's just so great that this has continued.
Yeah.
And so many things have evolved from the original program.
It's interesting. I think that I haven't really been able to articulate it very effectively, but there's a certain connection you get with other people who have been through the junior achievement experience, at least in the time when I went through it, in the high school program, et cetera. And I hope that the new programs that are in place today offer that same type of connection. I know that there is now a high school after school program, I believe, right? That they are doing the companies now, uh,
Yeah.
which is sort of bringing it back to where we started. But at the same time, I I always worried a bit that the in the classroom would not bring about quite as much of that excitement of getting to know new people from different parts of the community.
Well, that was one of the values, I think, again, if you got to meet people from other schools, people you have never met before, and you had a chance to share experiences and get the ideas for, again, people from other schools and again, working with Junior Achievement, all the advisors that you worked with over the years, the connections you made there, and
Mhm.
again, different ideas that they would come up with and so forth, and different ways of doing things. And so it was all that was all a valuable part of it for me, which played into uh, when after I left Junior Achievement, what I was doing was still getting out in the community, working with volunteers. Because when I did my work after Junior Achievement, I would generally work anywhere from 50 to 100 volunteers in a new community, getting to know all those people, getting to know the community better, getting to know different communities and different school systems better, the things that we learned when we were in Junior Achievement. And like you, I hope there's a way they can continue some of that so they do get broader experiences other than just in your own classroom.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What made you decide to leave JA? Were you ready for change?
Well, first left Junior Achievement of Atlanta and Junior Achievement of Georgia, which we expanded to take over the whole state. But left that. I won't get into the reasons for that. But at any rate, I was then went to work for the national organization as director of Southeast Operations, and I loved that. It was a different kind of experience. I loved going into because I had 22 cities, smaller communities, not the metro cities, but smaller communities like Chattanooga, Knoxville, Huntsville, Alabama, Decatur, Alabama, Greenville, South Carolina, where I worked with Sally some, and places like that in Georgia, East Alabama, East Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and working with young staff people because most of those all those places, I guess, had brand new staff people. And like I was when I started out with Junior Achievement, I hesitated to ask people things because I think, well, you should already know that. But I learned again because I had a lot of good mentors, even in Middletown, Ohio. So I would try to talk with them about things that, none of us know all the answers. We're always looking for new ideas and new answers. So I enjoyed working with the younger staff people, uh, going in smaller communities, again, working with their boards of directors on what they needed to do, how to do things better in their community, and understanding that they knew their community better than I did. That was one of the challenges we had in Junior Achievement sometimes is we wanted every community to operate exactly the same thing, but they're not all the same. Even, Atlanta, Georgia, and Augusta, Georgia, and Savannah, Georgia, and Valdosta, Georgia, they're all in the same state. They're all southern communities, but they're all a little bit different in their way they want to do things. So you have to make it fit for that local community. And I enjoy doing that, working with those local staff people, hiring people, new people to come in. And I remember hiring somebody down in Cocoa Beach, Florida. They had an all-female staff, and we hired a young man who was coming from an area up in Ohio, I think. And so I was talking to the staff people one day and I said, how's he working out? They said, oh, we love having him here. He can carry all the boxes for us. I said, no, that's not why he's there. But we laughed about it. But I always told them too that something I learned early on, don't go in as a new staff person into a new community and feel like you're going to change things overnight. Get a feel for the area, get a feel for the organization. Wait at least 6 months or maybe an entire year before you come up with new ideas of how you want to change things, unless the board has brought you in there to change something. Sometimes the board has brought you in because they want to change something. Then you change it because that's what the board says to do. But otherwise, don't go in just with your new ideas and say, well, this is the way we did it in, I didn't go into Chattanooga and say, well, this is the way we did it in Middletown. This is the way we did it in Nashville. So this is the way we should do it in Chattanooga. had to get familiar with what works in Chattanooga first and how the people operate in Chattanooga and understand their philosophy of things. 4.5 years later, after I took that position, they decided to eliminate those positions.
Oh,
So my job at that point was my choice at that point was to either move cross country, which I didn't want to do, or do something different. I decided to do something different. So, but I still tried to stay connected with junior achievement. And again, as I said, I still sold junior achievement wherever I went in my new career. And I'll say this, that one of those things too, that about 4 years after they eliminated the position, they decided to recreate those positions, decided that was a bad decision. They thought they could service everything out of the headquarters office. They had some efficiency expert to come in and tell them, you don't need these positions. You can service everything out of the central office. Well, obviously, what was a 1 day job for me going from Atlanta to Chattanooga, Atlanta to Knoxville, or to Huntsville, Alabama, places like that, was a 3 day trip at minimum coming in from Colorado Springs at that time. They had to fly into Atlanta, rent a car, drive to wherever they were going, and then do the same thing on a return trip. So they turned it into more expensive positions. So they recreated those positions. And at that time, I was offered a position to come back to do that. And I thought about it and I thought, no, it's time to move on. So I moved on and did other things. But as I say, still love junior achievement today as much as I did. I think about many great experiences, many great people I worked with, such as you, Gary, and so many others over the years. Sally, when she was in Greenville, South Carolina. I could just name people. I still stay in contact with Diane Chennis over in Columbia, South Carolina. Uh, Michelle Hamby.
that's always something I think that JA could have improved upon, because if you get the bug and you're really into JA, you want to stay connected. And it's not when you're in college, I was a center manager, so I was able to do that way. But I never really heard from, I was in the Washington, D.C. program and never heard
Right.
from anybody. And I think that's something that JA could still improve upon.
Well, yeah, because you miss those experiences, and I think we missed it by not keeping track of at least the superstars. You couldn't keep track of 20,000 people in Atlanta, but you had maybe a good core of people that we should have kept track of. That again, like I was mentioning, Sean Callahan for one. Some I
Right.
was able to keep track of because I was still in Atlanta even after I learned junior achievement. Some who became superstars in the political arena. Some again own their own business, very successful business people, and some like that you were able to keep up with because they were in the news. But those people didn't realize they were in junior achievement. And so I
Right.
would share with the people, I'd go back to people and say, hey, did you realize this person was in junior achievement? Again, in Carrollton, Georgia, guy who's the editor of the newspaper, small town, obviously, but the editor of the newspaper there was a former achiever and a former advisor. He ended up being the owner and publisher of a major chain of small town newspapers all over the country. So there was somebody that we needed to keep track of, but we didn't do a good job of that at the time because we didn't know what happened to those people.
I know a lot of people, like, well, on my own family, my sister had a huge, wonderful career at IBM, and she reported to the CEO. So she was almost as high up as you could get. And I'm sure, and in the DC area. So I'm certain that there would have been a great connection for junior achievement to have maintained, but it didn't happen. So,
Didn't happen. We didn't maintain those connections like we should have.
yeah.
And, we didn't think about the value of it at the time, I guess. We had so many other things we were trying to do. We were always short of staff and needed more staff, needed more money. Of course, we were
Yeah.
trying to do more things all the time.
Yes.
We needed more kids involved in junior achievement. We started new programs. We were trying to adapt to those. So it was a big challenge, but again, I think it's good that we go back to some of those. It's just one of those things we need to do. One of the guys that's on Shark Tank, he owned the basketball team in Texas. I'm trying to remember his name now. You may know who I'm talking about. Anyway, I know he was a former achiever. You should talk about that sometime. And I know a congressman from Nashville was a former achiever. And I shared that with a lot of folks that he was a former achiever of ours in Nashville. And again, as people became uh, major players in politics, major players in the business community, important that we get the word out. Those people started out in junior achievement because most
Exactly.
of them still had the same feel for junior achievement that we did. Even though they didn't go to work for junior achievement, they still had that same love for it. It could still be
Exactly.
great assets for us over the years. Yeah.
Exactly. So, was there one thing in particular that you didn't like about working for Junior Achievement?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was. And it was, the worst thing for me in the world was having to let somebody go because they weren't doing their job.
Yeah,
I hated that. I would commiserate over that. And everybody that I can remember letting go ended up being in a good or better position long term. They realized it was the best thing that happened to them when I let them go from junior achievement. And so it all worked out for the good. But each time I had to let somebody go, I would think about it. I'd say, okay, I'm gonna have to let them go tomorrow. Tomorrow I have to come some reason. Well, today's not a good day to do that. So I just hated to bring them into the office and say, we can't use you anymore. Again, that was the only thing I did not like about junior achievement is having to let somebody go. I always loved the people I worked with. Whether they were good people for junior achievement or not, sometimes they were, sometimes they were not. But as I say, in every other situation, as far as I can recall, everybody that I let go ended up in a better job, something they enjoyed more, and they didn't have negative experiences about junior achievement after leaving.
that's
So
great.
that was a tough part of it. Everything else, I think I just thoroughly enjoyed junior achievement and just enjoyed everybody I worked with, enjoyed seeing the kids accomplish things, enjoyed seeing those superstars. I enjoyed going back to NAJAC as a staff person
Mm.
because I wanted to see what happened there. And, I was replaced by Donna Buchanan, Donna Stone. And so I had known Donna when she was an achiever because we traveled to NAJAC. When I was in Chattanooga, our delegation traveled to NAJAC with them. That was also a good connection too because the train started, we went by train to NAJAC at that point. Train started in New Orleans, came over, went through Birmingham, picked up delegates in Birmingham, went through Atlanta, picked up delegates in Atlanta, came through Chattanooga, picked up delegates in Chattanooga. Then we went from there to NAJAC. And so I
Wow,
knew Beth from that experience. I learned from, again, the executive directors in New Orleans, Birmingham, and Atlanta. Those became kind of mentors of mine when I was in Chattanooga because I got to know them on that train ride and at NAJAC if they were going on to the national conference as well. So those became great experiences too. So
that's amazing.
those are the kind of things that I think, unfortunately, they do miss out on other things. I know they're doing things far more superior today than what we did in those days, but I think they miss out on those kind of experiences.
Oh, that I remember being at Rojac, Region One Junior Achievers Conference, and that was an incredible experience for me. And then of course NAJAC. So yeah, totally get that. You're right. That's interesting. By train, what a fun way to go.
Some of the other things I did with the national organization, um, or the international, I should say, is I went to Hungary,
Yeah.
spent 3 weeks in Hungary training teachers over there on how to teach economics because they had become a free country separate from the Soviet Union now. They had a free economy. So trained teachers there. Then I had the opportunity to go to Moldova and Belarus, train teachers there. Those are tremendous experiences. And again, finding out things about other countries that you didn't know and finding out again that we're really all the same. Even though we come from different nations, we all want the same thing out of life. We want a good life for our kids, our families. We want to try to do things the right way. I found that
Right.
with most people that wherever you are, you can meet people. I'll go back to the experience in where I was really doing the training in Hungary, where I was there for 3 weeks. And I had somebody traveled with me to Moldova and Belarus from Moscow, who really did most of the training. I did some of it. He did most of it. I did the connections and so forth in the business community because we were trying to get sponsors to go into those schools over there, which is something new for them as well. But in Moldova, I mean, in Hungary, when I was there for 3 weeks, um, I had 22 teachers that I was training for 3 weeks. We were at an isolated place out in the camp outside of town at a resort area actually outside of town. And Had one teacher that had taught English as a second language, two that could speak English a little bit, and the other 21 could speak no more English than I could speak their language.
Oh, no.
So that was a challenge. Had an interpreter for me, but I'd never done anything like that before. And so occasionally, we use slang expressions. And I remember one of the things that we used to say was Junior Achievement Company was a non-legal corporation, legal only within the framework of junior achievement. So I explained to them how junior achievement worked. And I said, what you're going to do in your classroom is form a non-legal corporation. And all the hands went up and said, whoa, we're not doing anything illegal. So illegal and non-legal came across as the same meaning to them. So had to go through a real explanation to explain what I meant by non-legal.
Oh my
But that was
goodness.
a term that really became an uproar. But by the same token, again, thinking we're all the same, by the third night, because we were out there staying there, they were staying there just like I was at this resort area, which you wouldn't consider a resort area if you were going to a place today, but it was considered that by the Russians and the Hungarians at that time. The third night, even though I had those people that didn't understand English, had to have a translator, I didn't understand their language. After hours, we were sitting around having a few drinks and teaching the songs. They were teaching me Hungarian songs. I was teaching them American songs, even taught them how to sing Glory, Glory to Old Georgia, which is the Georgia fight song, of course. And
Yes.
we're all just having a great time singing songs. We didn't know what we were singing. We were all enjoying life together. And it was just a great experience doing those kinds of things. I would never take anything for that. Those experiences that I had in Hungary, Moldova, and Belarus, working with those teachers, going out into the business community again, talking to business people. We had some that were normal to talk to because in all those countries, there's at least a Coca-Cola operation there, Coca-Cola bottling plant or some connection to Coca-Cola. So they understand better than the other people who were not understand local businesses, didn't understand volunteering in the community or giving money to a nonprofit organization because everything had been state operated before then. It was a new experience for them, but it's a great experience for me and them, a learning experience. I did not get involved in politics. I remember when I was in Hungary, I don't remember what happened, but something happened in Hungary. And our newspaper reporter who was covering what we were doing asked me, what did I think about that? And I said, I don't know enough about it to talk about it, but I'm not here to talk about politics anyway. I'm here to teach kids how to operate a business and how to understand the free enterprise system. And that was written up in the newspaper. I still have copies of the newspaper where the only thing I can read in that newspaper is where it says my name and it says your achievement. That's the only things that were in English. But I have a copy of the newspaper.
That's
But I was
cool.
not going to get into politics one way or the other. So stayed out.
That was wise on your part. I can't
Well,
imagine.
I think it was wise on my part in saying.
So, two thoughts come to mind. One, when I asked you what you liked least, I thought you might have said fundraising. You called it fundraising as opposed without the D.
Well, fundraising was always tough, and that was at least, I'd probably, if I had to say something I didn't like doing, it was fundraising. Yes, I ended up doing that. Now, capital campaigns, I will say, are different from doing annual fundraising campaigns.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing for the last 23 years of my working career. But so capital campaigns that we did in the only capital campaign I guess we really did in Atlanta was when we built the building.
Right.
And that was a great experience. I learned a lot about that, doing capital campaigns and how you sell those. But again, I still remember even when we started, we were fortunate to be one of 10 cities selected by the Kellogg Foundation to take junior achievement into rural communities. I forgot to mention that. And I remember going back to after they funded the program in the rural communities for the first year. Kellogg Foundation funded half the money for the program the second year, and then they had to operate on their own the third year. So after we started that with Kellogg Foundation, I went to one of the major foundations in Atlanta, the Woodruff Foundation, which is Coca-Cola money. Pete McTeer was the head of the foundation at that time, and we had always had a good relationship with Pete. Went to Pete, told him I wanted to get some capital campaigns money to take junior achievement into more rural communities beyond what we were able to do with Kellogg Foundation. I remember sitting there with Pete talking about the value of this, taking it into rural communities as opposed to just big cities. Pete looked at me and he said, "But don't you have any buildings you want to build?" And that's the easiest money to raise, I tell people, if you're building a building, because people like to see something. They like to see something concrete. Nobody really likes to pay for the nuts and bolts of the operation. Um, Same way with Business Basics. We did sell that as a classroom, per classroom program. I remember going to the Cobb County Chamber of Commerce and talking to them about their Partners in Education program and how we'd like to develop a partnership with them where their Partners in Education program would put Business Basics, which is a middle school program, in every middle school in Cobb County. They thought that was a great idea, and they got credit for it. We got credit for it. And I said, I don't care who gets the credit. We just want the kids to have the experience. So we'll be happy to give the credit to the Chamber of Commerce Partners in Education program. Just let them know the program is being provided by Junior Achievement. That's how we funded the program in Cobb County. Went to another county, but I went to them and I talked to the Partners in Education people, and they said, let me just tell you one thing. This is our program, that's your program. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. We're not working together on anything. I thought, wow, that's a learning experience to me, because I realized from the Cobb County program, partnering with somebody else, you can do far more than you could do on your own. And again, that was a learning experience too, that what we could do in Cobb County was put junior or Business Basics in every middle school in the county. We couldn't do that in this other county because they didn't want to partner with us. And yet they were
Yeah.
trying to do some of the same things that we were doing, but they didn't want to work together. The Georgia Council on Economics with applied economics. Most people saw Georgia Council on Economics, which trained teachers on how to teach economics as a competitor for us. Had a great relationship with their head, the guy, and we worked together to support both programs. Because again, we said there's enough to go around, enough needs to be done. It takes more than one thing to do it. So we've supported his program, he supported our program. And a lot of times our teacher of the year with applied economics would be his same teacher of the year, or it'd be somebody that was involved in his program, or his teacher of the year would be somebody that was involved in applied economics. So we realized that we can both help each other accomplish the objectives without fighting with each other in the business community. So that was a plus to the learning experience, that partnering together with other organizations, you do far more than you can do on your own.
Exactly. That's great. All right. I have to ask you about boards of directors. I know from my own experience working for profit world and as well as in the nonprofit world, it's a little different in both of those instances, but the relationship you have with the board is critical to success.
Very much. Yeah. I came to Atlanta. I had great relationship with my board. Well, the boards that I worked with in all the areas that I worked, I had a good relationship with. We developed a philosophy with board members too that I still used in my work with nonprofit organizations as I've gone forward, and as I'm doing just volunteer consulting now with nonprofit organizations. We had a saying with board members: you either be able to get money, give money, or get off the board. Because the board members do the fundraising. You can't do the fundraising by yourself. Your board members have to be your leaders there. You have to have leaders in the community. Nobody's going to give money to Gerald Scott. They will give it to the CEO or the vice president, whoever it is, of Bell South or a Coca-Cola company. They will listen to them. They won't listen to me. I can get in the door. I can help sell the program, but I've got to have that person to get me in the door at the very minimum.
Exactly.
Those who don't, board members that don't do anything but show up at board meetings are like joining any organization. I belong to the Georgia Society of Association Executives. I said, you only get out of an organization what you put into it. If you show up to meetings, you'll think it's a waste of your time and your money. You become just a mail order member. But if you get involved in the community, get involved in the organization, you'll get a lot out of it yourself. So it was also a chance for board members to make other connections.
Exactly.
Board members, people they might not otherwise interact with. So I tried to sell board members on that this is a good opportunity for you to get involved with other people in the community.
So
And
I'm going to turn this a little bit and say, what do you think was the funniest experience for you while working with JA?
Wow. I mentioned that we took the train from started in New Orleans, went through Birmingham, then Atlanta, Chattanooga, and Nashville. But the train only went as far as Louisville. It didn't go to Bloomington, Indiana. So we did take a bus from Louisville, Kentucky to Bloomington, Indiana, which again is a short trip. But I remember we were on the road one year. We came to this bridge and it said, so many tons bridge, this bridge is only loaded for so many tons. The bus driver stopped. He did some calculating. He said, okay, everybody's going to have to get off and walk across the bridge and let me drive the bus across the bridge with nobody on the bus. So that was kind of a funny experience that we had to get off the bus. We all walked across the bus. There was a bus load of people. I don't know how many of the bus seated, probably 60 or 70 people at the time. A group from handful from each of these cities that we had gone through. And we all had to get off the bus, walk across the bridge, and then get back on the bus after the bus came across after us to go to Bloomington.
I think it's interesting listening to you, Gerald. You can tell, your love for the program, but you also, I take away from this all the things that you learned and incorporated that into how you manage situations, how you develop relationships, how you engaged with the community. And one thing that really came through just now is your commitment to the program's ideals. That was what drove you, and understanding why you were there. It wasn't a job, it was a purpose. And
as I say, I just, there are very few days that I did not enjoy going to work. I look forward to it. I look forward to seeing the achievers. I like to be in the center when I could at night, but I realize that sometimes you have to leave that to other people, but you still want to get out in the center enough to get to know some of the kids and so forth, and just find out what's going on. And you put trust and faith in other people. I'll go back to when we built that building, the foundation I talked about that gave us the money to pay off the building. The head of that foundation, and they did everything, as I say, anonymously. But he told me one day, he said, this when we were still talking to him about getting the money, he said, what I want to do is go out to your Buckhead Center. Just introduce me to the people out there. It's a friend of yours from out of town that just wanted to come by and visit Junior Achievement. Don't tell them what I'm doing or anything about it. Just say it's a friend of yours. Give me the freedom to talk to the kids and talk to the advisors as I choose to. And I thought, oh Lord, this could go bad. But he got the same experience though, that he said everybody I talked to was so excited about the opportunities they had in Junior Achievement, the volunteers, the kids were so excited about what they were doing. This was probably middle of the year of Junior Achievement. So they'd been there for long enough to be a part of the company, active and making products and so forth. And it's a Buckhead Center, and just had to turn him loose and let him do whatever he wanted to do. As a friend of mine from out of town that was just interested in what they were doing. But it all turned out great because, again, while I feared the worst, it came out the best. That they told him exactly what they thought and how important they thought it was, how important they thought this new building was going to be. So
well, and that Buckhead Center wasn't particularly a great building at the time. I remember because that was one of the centers I oversaw right when I first started with y'all. And I remember going in trying to clean up a bit and get things organized for opening week. And I saw along the wall like what looked like a long line. And I went closer and looked at it, and it was a bunch of ants walking I'm like, oh boy, we got a lot of cleaning to do here.
Yeah, there was a lot of work to do at that Buckhead Center. It was a rented facility, but we found out that the owners of the facility that were renting it to us, they were only responsible for making sure the roof didn't leak. Everything else was Junior Achievement's responsibility. I remember when I first got there, and I don't want to pass this off that somebody else didn't do their job, because I had a similar experience when I went to Chattanooga too, that the way you turned the lights on and off was to unscrew the little fuses in the fuse box. And we finally had a crew from Western Electric that came out one weekend, I guess, or some point during the time, or maybe they came out during the summer, rewired the whole building for us. And yeah, the way you turn the lights off, you didn't have light switches, you would unscrew fuses in the fuse box, which is not the way to operate electricity. But, yeah.
Yeah, I have one more funny time to remember with you. I remember we went to the staff conference in New Orleans, which was wild and crazy. For me, I was like, fresh out of college, so 22, young woman. Anyway, and I remember we drove to save money.
Right.
And I remember Neil, I can't think, Tomlinson, is
Neil
that it?
Tomlinson.
Yeah. And he was driving and he had a credit card, but he didn't have like a Visa card. He had a certain gas card, credit card. And didn't we run out of gas?
I think
I
we did.
did, thanks to his one use of one credit card.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I think
Experiences we had like that because we drive to the conferences because we couldn't afford to fly or anything like that.
right.
So we
We
had to
all
get the
drove
cheapest
together.
way possible.
Exactly.
But I always tried to get I always tried to take the staff when I could because I thought again it was important it was important when I was a young guy that I got to go to staff conferences. And as I say, even before I was an executive director, I got to go to 2 staff conferences. And again, as I said, at that time they seated you in alphabetical order. I just happened to sit between 2 guys that were real strong JA people, and I knew that. So I learned from them. And I thought it was important to go. And as I said too, that I remember telling y'all that you know you may sometimes learn more outside the formal meetings than you do in the meetings because that's when you're going to sit down and talk to other people. I expect you to attend every meeting that you're there for, but you may learn more outside some of those meetings.
Yeah.
You sit down and have real conversations with people doing your same job in their city, learn how they do things, not just what you're hearing in the formal sessions, although that's all important. So,
Well, it also in a JA operation, I mean, there was only me. There wasn't like 3 program directors or 3 directors of operation, whatever my title was. So that was a chance for me to meet peers. And that was really helpful for my own development and thinking about new ideas, which obviously I came up with quite a few from time to time. But I think but that was really helpful for me. And plus, I got great guidance too. People were passing along great insight that as a 22, 23, 24-year-old, I wouldn't have known on my own without that.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
So, all great learning experiences all along the way, things that we think about from time to time still.
Do you have anything that you would consider your crowning achievement with
I think
JA?
about just in terms of reaching the kids and seeing the kids going on to accomplish other things and hearing parents tell you how much junior achievement did for their son or their daughter. I said,
Mhm.
those are all top achievements for me. Those are more important to me than anything I might have accomplished that I thought, we did. I didn't do anything on my own, but more than that, it was just reaching the kids and having those kinds of experiences, having teachers tell you how important it was to their classroom once we started the in-school programs.
Mhm.
Because again, they were such a critical part of our programs once we started the in-school programs.
Right.
But and I remember having advisors tell or volunteers going into the classroom tell me that and telling them that it was so important when they went into that classroom for kids to understand that they didn't have to be there. They were there because they wanted to help them, and let them know that they believe these kids could accomplish something regardless of what somebody else might have told them. Felt
Mhm.
that was particularly important with some of the schools that we went into where kids were coming from single parent backgrounds, maybe coming from poverty situations, maybe coming from situations where people told them you'll never amount to anything. That these volunteers coming in the classroom who were successful business people told them that you will amount to something. I can see that. You have a future here. And again, I go back to my own advisor telling me that you need to think about going to college. I've never thought about going to college because nobody in my family had ever gone to college. I was youngest in the family, youngest sibling, and I would not have gone to college. And then he happened to be the chairman of the board when they offered me a part-time job. So there's that connection with the advisor that I maintained those relationships over the years. And I remember finally sitting down and writing a letter to one of my former board chairman And he called me up after he was just after he had retired from his business, retired from junior achievement, everything else. He called me and said, I had to go out and bag a bigger hat today. And I said, what do you mean you had to go out and bag a bigger hat? He said, because my head's so big after you sent me that letter. Tell
Oh,
me what I meant to you over the years, how much I had helped you learn things over the years. So I think, letting people know those kinds of things is important too.
it is.
Those people there, somebody's helped us along the way. We need to let those people know that.
Well, Gerald, you did for me very much. I
Well, I
learned a
appreciate
lot
that.
from you, and um,
Both the
I'm
good
glad
and the bad.
I'm glad we're still in touch too, even though we don't talk as often. But I love your emails, and
Well, I appreciate you. And as I said, you may have been the smartest person I ever hired.
oh, please,
Well, I seriously say that. I don't say that jokingly. I've said that to other people that Beth Bush was probably the smartest person I
do you
ever
know
hired.
that after my first year, we went to a staff conference, and trying to think who it was. Somebody in Texas probably was like, touting all the great achievements they made and how many achievers they had in the program. And I'm like, we're going to do that next year. And that's when we broke the 4,000 number of
Yeah,
achievers in the high school program.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And that was all critical too, because I think when I got to Atlanta, they had maybe close to 1,500 students in the program. When we hit 2,000 mark, and then we kept going from there. And of course, by the time I left junior achievement of Georgia, we were up over 20,000 because we had the in-school programs going then.
right.
And so we were able to sell off the other buildings. We kept the one on Abernathy Road, which was our headquarters building. And International actually moved in there for a few years before they decided to move back to Colorado Springs. All good times, all good experiences. I appreciate all you did, all Gary did, and learned a lot of things from both of you as well as other folks along the way. So many other folks that I learned from, and still learn stuff every day. Different
Yes,
ways to do things, but I'll still always treasure my time with junior achievement no matter what happens.
that's great. That's wonderful, Gerald. It seems to me that some of the learnings that you've been sharing are things that are universal in that no matter what the current technology is or what the current whatever's the latest rate, the basics of being able to relate to people and to be able to be genuine and be able to be focused on the purpose of what you're there for applies no matter what.
Yeah,
And
I know.
I think that's something that all staff need to hear and volunteers.
Yeah, and be sure your volunteers know you care about them too.
Oh
Find
yeah,
out about them. Find out what's going on with them. It's not just all about you and what you're doing with junior achievement. What about them? What's going on in their business? What ideas do they have? Maybe how they can make things better. Because again, if we hadn't listened to other people, we'd still be doing the same things we've been doing for the last 100 years at junior achievement.
yeah.
But we listened to other people. We started doing things differently, and look how we are today. We would have never gone worldwide with junior achievement.
I one of the many lessons I learned when I was with JA, but was working with volunteers in particular takes some finesse. And I cannot remember this guy's name, but he used to live in Kennesaw Mountain area, and I don't remember. He wasn't. I made him a center manager. Um, he became one of my center managers. But anyway, he was one that was so critical all the time. He would just say, "Why is it this way? And why can't we do that way? And why is this? Why is that?" And I said, "You know what? You'd be a great center manager." He said, "I would." I was like, "Yes, you would." So I put him in that, and he took it on, and he started coming up with all sorts of great ideas. That I learned from JA, and I use that ever since with other kinds of volunteer situations, but also even with staff development and people who need more career growth. When they start to complain, I like to see that as good energy and a way to help me help them.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the thing that I tried to do as well. And, just learn from other people. And as I say, let them know what's been done and why you're doing this something a certain way. Some things you can't change. Some things you have to do a certain way. But let them know why and how it works. And if they have a better idea, then let's give it a shot and see if we can make that work.
Right. I have one other one I learned somewhat by accident, but nonetheless, it's helped me out numerous times in my life, in my career. I remember I was late getting to one of the big assemblies of, this was probably in Southeast Atlanta, and where they had made a big deal. No, 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 it wasn't. It was no, it wasn't. It was over in the Buckhead area, so north. Anyway, I was late. I got there, got into the assembly. They were all like, just goofing off. Like this was a great reason to get out of class. And so I don't know where I came up with it, but out of nowhere, I said, look, I'm just going to tell you, not many of you can make it in junior achievement. We only want the best and the brightest. If you think you can do it, apply. Otherwise, don't. And I left. And we got all more applications from them. I was like,
Yeah, I would have said, Beth, don't do that. Don't tell them that.
I know, right?
But see, it worked.
It did.
So you never know what's going to work, and you got to try different things sometimes.
Yeah.
Try a different approach to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Gerald. Well, I'm going to let you go because I know we're over an hour. Oh my gosh, an hour and a half. You have an 11 o'clock.
It's been great. I could talk for another. We could talk for another hour probably, but
Easily.
So, but it's great to talk with you. Great to see you. Glad
Likewise.
you're doing so well. And again, you've been a lot to me when you were here with Junior Achievement. So did Gary, and I appreciate all y'all did to make the Atlanta program what it was. And just like to think that all of us had a small part in where it is today. Because
Yes.
it keeps evolving, it keeps evolving. As I told Jack Harris, I said, Jack, the day I met with him, I said, Jack, you're doing things we could never have dreamed of doing. And I said, that's all a part of it. Because we early on, nobody could dream of taking junior achievement into the classroom at all.
Right.
As I said, I told Lon Krim, who's superintendent of schools, great guy, great board member. But I said, Lon, it would never work. He said, you get more kids for you to take it into the schools. I said, no, we can't do that. It won't work. Little did we know, not only does it works great.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Beth.
Well, thank you, Gerald. Take care.
Get down this way. Let me know you're heading this way.
I will, for sure. I promise.
All right.
All right. Take care.
Take care. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.